Trooping down fathers as I start to write this memoir. Who would have ever thought at 19 I'd take it that far? My life is like a movie without the caption. That means even in the next scene, I swear to God.
Let me unmute my mic real quick. We got a lot to go over today on the James Nolan podcast. Going to be talking a lot of New York sports, obviously. And if you haven't, make sure you check out my articles on Fansided. Just had one recently go up. Josh Hader and the Yankees, MLB insider from The Athletic, recently linked those two. Oh, and should they go after Blake Snell as well? I'm going to be getting into that later on the Yankees side. Going to be starting it off with some Mets talk, though. Pete Alonso extension. Should David Stearns offer him that before the start of the 2024 season? Also, Jorge Soler had an article about it recently, too. MLB rumors going nuts about him going to the Mets. Is he the missing piece for a 2024 wildcard run for the New York Mets? Going to get into that later. Can Luis Severino and Sean Manaea have bounce-back seasons for the Mets? You know, Manaea had a great second half with the San Francisco Giants. That's why Stearns gave him that extension when he got to the Mets. So we'll see what we're going to get into that later, but we'll see eventually if those two can actually pan out. Because if they do, the Mets might have a strong rotation. And then Edwin Diaz, his return, how will that impact the Mets in 2024? Because in my opinion, he was the 2022 MVP for the Mets. He was the reason they got 101 wins. I mean, he was dominant. He was the best closer in baseball. So we're going to be talking that at the start of the podcast. And then we're also going to get into the Jets and the Giants. Jets, Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson changed his number to number 5. His number 17 going to come in, join his former teammate Aaron Rodgers. Should the Jets make that trade? And they need a backup quarterback. Let's be clear. Aaron Rodgers not going to play all 17 games next year. Should Gardner Minshew be that guy? Talking about that later as well. Giants, Daniel Jones, is he the guy going forward? Or should they draft their guy with the 6th overall pick? Jayden Daniels, LSU, maybe. Who knows? Or should they build around Jones, get him a wide receiver? We're going to be talking about a guy out of Washington and a guy out of Ohio State. You guys probably know those guys we're going to be talking about. Or the Notre Dame stud, Joe Alt. Who should the Giants pick with that 6th overall pick? Or should they trade up? Who knows? Going to be talking all about that later. But to start, Pete Alonso. Let's go to the comments real quick. CP, what's up, dude? How we doing? CP, I know you're big on this. Pete Alonso, you know he should be extended. And I'm going to give you my thoughts right now. And if you got some thoughts too, please drop them in the comments. Oh, Jayden Daniels a lot. Yeah, I like that. We're going to be talking about that later, CP. But to start off, I want to talk about this Pete Alonso thing going on right now. Obviously, the trade rumors at the trade deadline didn't please a lot of Mets fans. You know, when guys on WFAN also talk about Pete Alonso going somewhere, they don't like it because Pete Alonso is Mets fans' guys. He's our guy. That is our guy. He reps blue and orange. He reps Queens. And to put it quite frankly, he's probably one of the best power hitters in baseball. I mean, when you look at his numbers, he's a 40 home run guy year in and year out. Since he's been in the league, he had 46 home runs this season with 118 RBIs. He did hit 218, but also last year, which I think is what we're going to see out of Pete Alonso in 2024. 2022, these were Pete Alonso's numbers. 40 home runs, led MLB with 131 RBIs, 271 batting average, OPS of 8. Hold on. Jesus. 8 OPS of 869. That's the Pete Alonso that I think we're going to see in 2024. And that's what we need to see out of Pete Alonso. And that's how if he doesn't get an extension before the season, that's how he'll get locked up long-term with the Mets, is if he has that type of season. And I think we'll see that because his rookie year, he had 262. His rookie season, 260, 941 OPS, 53 home runs. I mean, that was with the inflated baseball. So I will give him that, but 120 RBIs there. So he has 300 RBI seasons in realistically 4 full seasons in the MLB because we're going to not count 2020 considering it was a shortened season. You only played 57 games. So every season that has been a 162 game season, 3 out of 4 of those, Pete Alonso hits 100 RBIs and hits 40 home runs. You keep that guy, especially when that guy's homegrown. You need that guy in the locker room. Yeah, he's a little weird and he's a little quirky, humping the dugout post and then obviously deadlifting in the middle of the home run derby. Yeah, it's cringy. But at the end of the day, that guy hits 40 home runs and 100 RBIs every single year. And he's going into his prime. And if the Mets want to win in 2024 and 2025, 2026, they could use Pete Alonso long term. They want a DH, he could be that DH. Then you go find another first baseman. How about that? Problem solved right there. You lock up a guy that hits 40 home runs and 100 RBIs every single year. Now, what does he get? Pete Alonso, the average for Alonso, let's see what CP gets. In 2023, yeah, you're right. It was a down year. His worst season in the league, he hits 46 home runs and 118 RBIs. So, yeah, he is a career 250 hitter, top 3 power bat, if not top 1. 8 years, $240 million is what CP would give him. And that's exactly the offer I would agree with, too. And to be quite frank, I would go maybe even 8 years, 250. Why not? He's homegrown. He's deserved it. If we're going to give Brandon Nimmo an 8-year deal, you got to give Pete Alonso an 8-year deal. You got to start off with that. I'd even go 30 mil AAV too. Why not? Make him the highest paid first baseman. He might not be the best first baseman, but we all know contracts isn't about being the best. It's about what your value is. And Pete Alonso's value, when he hits the market next season, if he does hit the market next season, I'm not going to rule out the Mets don't extend him, but I don't think we're going to see an extension, quite frankly. I'm a little nervous there. But if he does hit the open market, you already know he's going to be one of the most coveted free agents. Like I said, 40 home runs and 100 RBIs every single year. 3 out of 4 full seasons, 100 RBIs, 40 home runs. All right, let's get into the next Mets topic. Should the Mets sign Jorge Soler? Now, 1 to 2 year deals is what David Stearns has been handing out this offseason. By the way, if you're a Mets fan, this cup is so sick. One of the guys I work for, well, not one of the guys, one of the customers that comes to the gym, he works at the Hall of Fame, and the Mets logo on this was a little crooked, so he gets all these like free cups, and he gave one to me. What a nice guy. And it has all like the Hall of Famers that, not Mets Hall of Famers, but any Hall of Famer that played for the Mets, even though Mike Piazza and Tom Seaver are only 2 real Hall of Famers, and David Wright should be, but he's not going to be. He should be, though. But should the Mets sign Jorge Soler to be the DH? I wrote an article about it, too. He had a career year last season, so you don't want to go too crazy and give him a long-term contract, but I don't think he's even looking for a long-term contract. And Hector Gomez reported that the Mets are interested in Jorge Soler. So, listen, and it does make sense. If he does want a short-term deal, the Mets, we all know, they've been handing out short-term deals. They handed out a 1-year deal to Luis Severino, 2-year to Sean Manaea, 1 year to Harrison Bader. They're handing out these short-term deals. So why not give Jorge Soler a short-term deal? Think about this lineup that could be this could be the Mets lineup with Jorge Soler. You got Brandon Nimmo leading off in left, Starlin Marte in right, Lindor at short, Pete Alonso at first, Soler DH, McNeil second base, Francisco Alvarez catcher, Brett Beatty or Vientos at third, and then Harrison Bader batting ninth in center. That could be the potential Mets lineup if they get Soler. That's what I think they should do. The guys hit 30 home runs in back-to-back seasons. So why not? Why not? He's 31 years old right now? I think they should go get Jorge Soler. And think about it too. Stearns even said it earlier today on SNY in an interview with Andrew Martino. He said that they do want to make the playoffs and they think that they can make the playoffs in 2024. If they get Jorge Soler, it gives them a much better chance to get that wild card spot, to sneak into the playoffs. They're not winning the division. That's the Braves or the Phillies. They're just loaded. The Mets are going to get a wild card spot if they make the playoffs. And Soler would help them do that. Batting fifth would give Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor the protection we have been begging for over the past 3 seasons now. This team is ready to win. Jeff McNeil was the batting champion in 2022. Pete Alonso, like I said, I was raving about him at the start of the podcast. He's a 40 home run and 100 RBI guy every single year. Francisco Lindor is coming off one of his best years, 30-30, over 260 batting average. He's a beast, right? Top 3 shortstop. So we have a top 3 shortstop, former batting champion, one of the best sluggers in all of baseball. CP said that he's a top 3 slugger, and I kind of agree with that. You got Brandon Nimmo, too, who's not too shabby. Starlin Marte, who's lighting it up in fall ball right now. Well, winter ball. We got a good team. Kodai Senga, he's an ace. Top 5 in ERA in all of MLB last year among starters. Edwin Diaz, he's coming back. Best closer in baseball. Maybe Josh Hader is, but I still think it is going to be Edwin Diaz when he's healthy this year and he's back and he becomes the best closer in baseball. And he has a sub-2 ERA again. I'm calling it right now. Edwin Diaz is that guy. You get Jorge Soler, 1 to 2 or even 3-year deal. Who cares? He could be that missing piece that gets you to the wild card. And when you get into the playoffs in the MLB, anything can happen. We all know. Braves won it out of the wild card. Nationals won it out of the wild card. 2 teams in the NL East. Right there. Why not? Let's see. The Phillies, too. They've been to the World Series the past 2 years. Wild card spots. All you got to do is get in the MLB. And if the Mets get in, they would get in with Jorge Soler. I'll tell you that right now. But if they do get in without Jorge Soler, they really want him. Because you need home runs and you need pitching. And if the Mets do get to the playoffs, it probably means Severino and Manaea had good seasons, and that's what I want to talk about right now. Should we trust these guys? I know a lot of Mets Twitter is kind of raving about them. I know CP kind of likes him. I know Shea and Sons does like him too. But both these, one Severino, they haven't been raving about that much, but Manaea, they have been. And Manaea is a guy who I'll admit, in the second half with the Giants, he did have a very good turnaround. But outside of that, he's still a guy who has a career ERA of over 4. Severino, he's coming off the worst year of his entire career. Now, Sevy, I kind of think has a better chance of turning out and turning around and bouncing back in 2024 and maybe being the guy he once was. Manaea, he was never that guy. Severino, at least he was like a Cy Young candidate back in the day. Manaea, he never was. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Stearns, I mean, he has this whole entire pitching lab thing that he's bringing over from the Milwaukee Brewers organization. So who knows? Who knows? But right now, when I look at the Mets rotation, I see one guy who I trust, and that's Kodai Senga. Jose Quintana a little bit, but he got hurt for half a season last year. Can I trust him to make 30-plus starts? Can I trust him to make 25-plus starts? I don't know. Can I trust Severino to do the same? I don't know. Manaea, he's probably going to make 25, 30 starts. But is he going to be a 4 ERA guy or is he going to be a 3-ish ERA guy? I don't know. The only guy that I know in the Mets rotation that is going to give me production and going to give me, and he's an ace, is Kodai Senga. He's the only guy that I know will have a good season in 2024. The other 4, they're all question marks. So listen, could they have great years and could they help us have a wild card run? Yeah. But could they also suck? Yeah, 100%. That's what their track record says. And Jose Quintana, yeah, he was great when he was healthy, but he also missed half the season. So Kodai Senga right now is the only guy in that rotation that I trust. But we'll see. We'll see. One guy that will help the Mets in 2024 is Edwin Diaz, though, because he was the best closer in baseball in 2022. He put together one of the best seasons that a closer has ever done, right up there with Mariano Rivera. He's not Mariano Rivera now, but that season was right up there with his best seasons. Let's go over that season, actually, because it was truly historical, the numbers that Edwin Diaz actually put up in 2022. And he was a big part of why the Mets won 101 games. And he was a big part of why the Mets took a huge fallback in 2023. 1.31 ERA in 2022. And the strikeout numbers were ridiculous. 118 strikeouts in 62 innings. That's insane. And only 18 walks. So, and then his ERA in 2020 was 1.75, 1.96 in 2018. So Edwin Diaz, when he's at his best, he's the best closer in baseball, and he's comfortable now in New York. He wants to be here. He was also apparently a huge leader in the clubhouse in 2022, and he was out of the clubhouse in 2023. And we all know the clubhouse issues that they had. Who knows? Maybe Max Scherzer was a big reason. I'm a conspiracist on that one. I think Scherzer was kind of a douche in the Mets locker room. But Edwin Diaz was apparently the glue of the Mets in 2022. So when he's in the dugout, in the bullpen, I should say, just in the clubhouse, the vibe in the Mets clubhouse is better. Edwin Diaz is that guy. Edwin Diaz, listen, the Mets offensively in the lineup, they don't have a superstar. In the rotation, they don't have a superstar. Kodai Senga isn't a superstar. He might be an all-star, but he's not a superstar. The only superstar that the Mets do have is Edwin Diaz. He is a superstar. He could be the reason that the Mets get that wild card spot. Because last year, I could make the case that if they had Edwin Diaz, it would have changed the whole entire season. They have somebody locked down the end of the games. We all know how many times the bullpen blew it. The Mets had one of the worst bullpens in the entire league last year. Yeah, their starters sucked, but their bullpen was atrocious. Especially after they lost David Robertson. Edwin Diaz, when it was supposed to be Ottavino, Robertson, Diaz. That would have got the Mets to the playoffs in 2023, in my opinion. But that didn't happen. But now with Diaz back in 2024, who knows? You get Jorge Soler, Mets are going to the wild card. All right. No more Mets. 17 minutes on the Mets. Let's get into the Yankees. Marcus Stroman signed with the Yankees recently. Rotation right now looking like Cole, Nestor Cortez Jr., Carlos Rodon, who had a terrible year last year, and he signed a $100 million deal with the Yankees. Now you got Marcus Stroman, probably going to be the 4 or the 3, and then Clark Schmidt. And then shortly I'm going to be talking about why they should add Snell to that rotation too and put Schmidt back in the bullpen. And that bullpen is absolutely loaded, actually. And then we'll be talking about Josh Hader soon too. But Marcus Stroman, let's go over his numbers real quick. He did have a very good year with the Mets. His last season with the Mets, I believe he had like a 3.02 ERA. Last year, he had a great first half. He was one of the best pitchers in baseball in the first half with the Cubs. But he finished with a 3.95 ERA, 10-9. Average numbers, 3.5 ERA in 2022 with a 6-7 record. And he did have 25 starts in consecutive years. And in 2021, last year he had with the Mets, I was just talking about, 3.02 ERA, and he made 33 starts. So this guy is durable. That's one thing I will say. He will go out there and make 25, 30 starts, and he's going to give you a sub-4 ERA. It's a good sign-in for the Yankees. Now, Mets fans are obviously going to troll the Yankees, and I had my fun with it. But now, my serious side of it is that the Yankees made a good decision signing Marcus Stroman. And especially if they go out there and they still sign Blake Snell, that gives you 2 guys who are coming off Cy Young seasons at your 1 and 2. You got Carlos Rodon, who if he has a year like he did with the Giants 2 years ago, then that's a really good number 3. Nestor Cortez, who was a Cy Young candidate in 2022. And then your 5, that's right there. I mean, Cole, Cortez, Rodon, Stroman. Cole, Snell, Cortez, Rodon, and Stroman. That's a stacked rotation. That's the best rotation in baseball. If I'm Brian Cashman, I'm doing that. Because think about it. Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, and Garrett Cole. 3 guys who are generational talents. Aaron Judge, in my opinion, he's the best hitter in baseball. Last year, he was hurt. In 2022, Aaron Judge showed you what Aaron Judge is. The best hitter in baseball. And even to start 2023, he was on that same track. He was on track to hit over 62 home runs again. But then he got hurt. Ran into the wall at Dodger Stadium, whatever it's called. Aaron Judge is the best hitter in baseball. Garrett Cole is the best pitcher in baseball. Juan Soto He's a phenomenal everything. Hitter. He's got a cannon, maybe in the outfield, like track and fly balls and stuff. He's not too, but offensively, he's one of the best outfielders. Aaron Judge, arguably the best outfielder. I think he is the best outfielder. Garrett Cole, yes, he is the best pitcher in baseball. You get Blake Snell. Blake Snell solidifies that rotation as the best rotation in baseball. 2 Cy Young Award winners at the 1 and 2. You can put Stroman, Rodon, or Cortez at 3. Put them however you want. That rotation is loaded. And now imagine if they really want to be the evil empire. They go out there and they get Josh Hader. That's if I was Brian Cashman, that's what I would do. I'd get Blake Snell and I'd get Josh Hader. Because Josh Hader was absolutely ridiculous last year. I actually just had an article about it. It's going to be coming up pretty soon. But Josh Hader, you want to hear his numbers from last year? His numbers were almost better. They were actually better than Edwin Diaz, except for strikeouts. 1.28 ERA, 85 strikeouts in 63 games in 2023. 61 games in 2023. Josh Hader was the best closer in baseball in 2023. Him and Edwin Diaz, best 2 closers in baseball. If I'm the Yankees, one, you did have a very good rotation. Bullpen. Last year, actually, the Yankees had the best bullpen ERA, but they had a 3.34 bullpen ERA, which was the best in baseball. But they did have only 44 saves, 11th in MLB. They need a guy that can lock down games. And let's be real, guys. Josh Hader could be that guy. You get Blake Snell, you get Josh Hader. That's going to get them that 28th World Series. Now, I'll admit it right now. If the Mets get to the playoffs, that's a successful season. The Yankees, it's World Series or bust right now. And adding Blake Snell and Josh Hader, that's what you do. A rotation of Cole, Snell, Stroman, Rodon, Cortez. And then you got a bullpen of Clay Holmes, Tommy Canley, Ian Hamilton, Nick Ramirez, all posted sub-3 ERAs last year. And then you add Josh Hader in that. Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, the best hitter in all of baseball, Anthony Rizzo, Giancarlo Stanton, who he might have a bounce-back year with Soto joining the lineup. LeMahieu, he had a good second half of the year. Anthony Volpe, he did hit over 20 home runs. We can't rule that out. He brings up that average. He's going to be a very good shortstop. And he's just, 21 years old? The Yankees are gearing up for a World Series run. That's what they're doing right now. Brian Cashman is gearing up for a World Series run in 2024. And what they should do now is sign Blake Snell and Josh Hader. And that will cap off one of the best off seasons the Yankees have had in a long time. All right, let's talk about some football now. A lot of off-season stuff. Garrett Wilson changed his number to 5. Does that mean a new number 17 is going to come to town? Is a new number 17 going to join the New York Jets? Davante Adams is the guy I'm talking about. The Las Vegas Raiders, especially if they don't bring back, what's his face? Why am I blanking right now? The head coach that was from the Giants. You guys, whatever his name is, okay? The old linebacker from the Giants. If somebody knows his name, please put it in the comments. But Davante Adams might be getting traded. Garrett Wilson changes his number to 5. Aaron Rodgers really wants him. And it's Super Bowl or bust. Just like the Yankees are in World Series or bust mode, the Jets are in the same position. It's Super Bowl or bust. Even if Rodgers gets hurt, which is what I'm also going to be talking about later. They need to get a good backup, and that good backup could be Gardner Minshew. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. But Davante Adams, you got to trade for him. You have to trade for him if you're the Jets. One, the receivers outside of Garrett Wilson suck. Allen Lazard, he sucked. That 3-year deal has proven in 1 year to be the worst contract in one of the Jets history because he sucks. He had less than 300 receiving yards. He sucks. Listen, Xavier Gibson, I love him. I love the talent, but he's nothing. He's not a number 2 receiver or a number 1, maybe a number 3. He could be a good number 3. I'll say that. But now you add 2 number 1s and 2 true number 1s, because Garrett Wilson would have put up 1,500 yards this year if he had Aaron Rodgers for a full season. I'll say that right now. He had, to start off his career, over 1,100 yards last year, over 1,000 yards this year. And he did that with Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, Mike White, Tim Boyle, Chris Trevler, Trevor Siemian. Am I missing anybody? 6 starting quarterbacks now, and back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons out of this guy. Garrett Wilson is legit. But now you bring in Davante Adams. Even if Rodgers gets hurt, whoever that backup quarterback is, who it should be Minshew, but whoever that backup quarterback is, they're going to have a field day. Breece Hall, Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson, Xavier Gibson. Now, yes, they do need to build up that offensive line. Maybe Joel falls to them. Who knows? But they need Davante Adams, in my opinion. That's the guy they need. Super Bowl or bust. Go get Davante Adams. And now they need a backup. They need a backup. That's step 2 of the Jets offseason. Well, step 3. Step 1 is offensive line. Step 2 is Davante Adams. And this is step 3. Get an actual backup quarterback. Zach Wilson, thank God. The Zach Wilson era in New York is over. It's over. The Rams could trade for him. Who knows? The Falcons could trade for him. And then the Falcons are also interviewing Belichick. Imagine that. Falcons get Belichick, and they sign Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson turns out to be a star. That would really suck. That would suck. That would, like, we think Belichick going out of New England and Zach Wilson leaving New York is going to be a good thing, but unless they link up in Atlanta and then they go off. But the Jets need a backup quarterback in 2024. Gardner Minshew will be available. Gardner Minshew is the guy that they should get. Gardner Minshew actually almost got the Colts into the playoffs. Yes, he had a little debacle at the end of the year, but it's not all on him. One, he's 27 years old, so he can move around a little bit. He's not going to be like a Tim Boyle or a Trevor Siemian, a guy who's going to be just standing there. And also, he had a 62.2 completion percentage, 3,300 yards in 2023, 15 passing touchdowns, and how many interceptions? Let's see. Only 9, 15-9. So if Aaron Rodgers does go down with an injury and it was Gardner Minshew who stepped in, you'd be a lot more confident than a lot of the other backup options. Ideally, it would be Mike White, but that's not happening. He signed a 2-year deal. He's going to be with Miami. Gardner Minshew is the guy that the Jets should go out there and get as their backup. Now, there are other options. They could go get Sam Darnold, another former Jets quarterback who will be available in free agency. There are other backup options, and they could always go out there and draft a future guy, maybe in the 2nd or the 3rd round. But what I think that they should do, and I think the best move, the best backup that will be available in the offseason in free agency is Gardner Minshew. He almost took the Colts to the playoffs, and it was a Colts team that nobody really expected to do anything. They got 9 wins, and Minshew was the starter. Over 3,300 yards. He had a winning record. You put Minshew with this defense and an offense with potentially Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Xavier Gibson, you get an actual offensive line. Minshew he will be able to win you games, is what I'm saying. So the Jets need a backup. Minshew's going to need a team. He probably wants to win because he's a winner. You go get him, and you make him your backup. And he's a good locker room guy, too. I'd go get Minshew if I was the Jets. Who should trade for Zach Wilson? I'll give you 3 teams right now. Minnesota Vikings, they need a quarterback. Atlanta Falcons, they need a quarterback. And Los Angeles Rams, they might need a quarterback. I don't think Carson Wentz is going to be coming back. That's all the time I'm spending on Zach Wilson. I'm so happy that he's gone. Robert Saleh is a guy I'm going to spend a little bit of time on, because he's a guy that has a lot of pressure going on into next year. I wrote a lot of articles that he should not be coming back this year, and a lot of coaches that could replace him at the end of the offseason. But Then Woody Johnson came out and said that he's going to be coming back along with Nathaniel Hackett, which makes no sense. The only reason it makes sense is because it makes Aaron Rodgers happy. But then again, it's the Aaron Rodgers show in Florham Park. So Robert Saleh sucks. He's one of the worst head coaches in the National Football League. We all know that. But he does have a chance next year because Aaron Rodgers is a 4-time MVP. And whether you like it or not, even though he has all these thoughts about Jimmy Kimmel and stuff like that, whether you like it or not, Aaron Rodgers is very good at the game of football. He is. That's why he won 4 MVP awards. That's why he does have a Super Bowl ring. And if we do get Davante Adams and we do get an offensive line, Rodgers might win the AFC East in 2024. That's how good Aaron Rodgers is. He doesn't need Robert Saleh. The only reason he probably wants Robert Saleh and Nathaniel Hackett is because he can call the shots. And I'm kind of okay with that. Because Rodgers is a 4-time MVP and a Super Bowl winning quarterback. You can clown him all you want for his playoff fumbles, and fumbles being a metaphorical word there, not actual playoff fumbles, but his playoff suckness. Rodgers sucks in the playoffs, right? But he also did have a Super Bowl win, and not many QBs in this league have that besides Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford. Who else has a Super Bowl ring in this league that's a starter right now? That's a starter. Jimmy G, but he was a backup, so that doesn't really count. There's not a lot of QBs that have a ring. Only Rodgers and Mahomes that I can think of. Russell Wilson. Comment if you can think of any, because right now all I can think of is Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes. That's about it. Flacco. I guess we could say Flacco. But Rodgers, 4-time MVP. He knows it don't matter who his head coach is. You give him Garrett Wilson, you give him Breece Hall, you give him Xavier Gibson, and potentially Davante Adams, and that stud of a defense on the other side of the field, he going to get you to the playoffs. As Stephen A. Smith would say, he's a bad man. But if Rodgers does go down, which there is also a potential for that because he is over 40 years old, he's coming off a torn Achilles, and he had some experimental surgery on it. So who knows? He could still get hurt. And we could see a guy like Gardner Minshew trotting out to the field. And if the Jets miss the playoffs, and it doesn't matter if Rodgers gets hurt, the Jets cannot miss the playoffs. Because if they do, Robert Saleh, bye-bye. He should have been gone. A lot of great NFL coaches got let go this year. Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, gone. Atlanta Falcons, they let go of Arthur Smith. But the Jets kept Robert Saleh after they were 4-3. 4-3 at one point in the season. And they finish 7-10. And then 2 years ago, they were 5-2. I believe they were 7-4 at one point. And then you know what they finished? They finished 7-10. 2 playoff collapses. 2 terrible finishes after bye weeks. Robert Saleh needs Aaron Rodgers. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't. A head coach shouldn't need a 4-time MVP to prove he's a good head coach. Regardless of Rodgers playing every single game next year or getting hurt and missing time, if the Jets don't make the playoffs, Saleh has to go. And that's what I'll finish with on the Jets. Let's talk about some more positive stuff. The Giants do have the 6th overall pick. Joe Schoen could draft his first ever quarterback in Jayden Daniels out of LSU. CP, he said it at the start of the pod. He wants the Giants to take Jayden Daniels at number 6 if he's available. And I think a lot of fans do too. Jayden Daniels threw 40 touchdowns this year for LSU. Only 6 interceptions, I believe. He's a guy that the Giants should want. So let's go over 3 potential draft targets for the Giants. One being Jayden Daniels. I do think I agree with CP there that if he's available there at 6, they should go get him. Daniel Jones signed, what, $160 million deal, 4-year deal. But guess what? If he sucks this year or at any point of the year and they do have Jayden Daniels on their team, they can bench him, put Jayden Daniels in, and Daniel Jones, they can cut him with like basically no cap implications for 2025. Very minimal. They structured that deal actually very smart. So good for Joe Schoen on that end. He hasn't drafted his own QB yet, too. He inherited Daniel Jones. This is not Dayball and Shane's guy. They could draft their own guy, and that guy could be Jayden Daniels at 6 overall. Threw 40 passing touchdowns in 2023 for the LSU Tigers. Now, I know the NCAA is not the NFL, but Jones, his best season, 2022, only 15 passing touchdowns. So, I mean, yeah, I think you know what I mean there. Daniel Jones is just not. He did get a franchise QB contract, but is he a actual franchise QB? A franchise QB throws more than 15 passing touchdowns in his best season. Yes, he does have a playoff win. I know. He has a playoff win. But so does Jordan Love. Does Jordan Love have a $160 million deal? So does Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield now has a few. Does he have a $160 million deal? And those two guys are a lot better than Daniel Jones. The Giants actually could have signed Baker Mayfield in the offseason. Now, I'm not saying he's going to throw for over 4,000 yards with the Giants if he was on the Giants this year. He did have Mike Evans, and he did have Chris Godwin, and he did have, Cade Otton. But Baker doesn't have a $160 million deal, and he probably won't get one. And Daniel Jones has never thrown for over 4,000 yards. Huh. So what I'm saying is Daniel Jones, in my opinion, is not going to turn out to be the guy, regardless on if the Giants draft a QB in the first round this year or not. But if I'm the Giants, and like CP said, if Jayden Daniels is there at 6, you take Jayden Daniels at 6. And you let him sit behind Daniel Jones for a little bit. You do. And if Jones has a good year, yes. Great. Then you bring him back for a third. You bring him back for that third year of that contract, and you don't cut him, and you let Daniel sit another year. Why not? Look at Jordan Love right now. He sat for 3 years behind Aaron Rodgers. 2 years behind Aaron Rodgers. It was 2 years, and then this year throws for over 30 passing touchdowns, only 11 interceptions. Throws for over 4,000 yards. And he goes out there and he beats the NFC East champions in the Dallas Cowboys. And he balled out in his first year as a starter. So you take Jayden Daniels, you let him sit for a little bit behind Jones until Jones starts to show you that he can't be a starting quarterback for the Giants. And then you put Jayden Daniels in. That's what I would do. That would be the first option I would do if I'm the Giants. But if Jayden Daniels gets picked, or maybe even if Joe Alt's there and the Giants believe in Daniel Jones a little bit more than a lot of the fans do or myself does, you go out there and you build around him. And a guy that you could build around him with is Joe Alt. Listen, the Giants' offensive line sucks. They let up 85 sacks in 2023, most in the entire NFL, partially due thanks to one of the worst linemen in the NFL, Evan Neal. But what they have to do is build an actual offensive line. Joe Alt out of Notre Dame could be that guy. Look at the other Notre Dame linemen. The other Notre Dame linemen in the NFL right now are freaking studs. Absolute studs. Well, one, you have Quentin Nelson. And then you also have Ronnie Stanley for the Baltimore Ravens. And let's go over Joe Alt's stats in the college. So Joe Alt, in his junior season, he let up no sacks and he let up 3 hurries. Only 3 hurries. Last year, in his final season with Notre Dame, he only let up 1 sacks, 5 total hurries. That's a guy you get if he's available. And I think he could be available at 6 overall. And he could be a guy that you pair up right alongside at right tackle or left tackle. You're going to have to move Andrew Thomas to right tackle, or you're going to have to move Joe Alt from left tackle to right tackle. One of those guys is going to have to play right tackle. But Joe Alt is also like 6'8", over 330 pounds of pure muscle. Not pure muscle. He's got a little bit of, but Joe Alt's a freaking stud. Quentin Nelson and Ronnie Stanley, both studs out of Notre Dame in recent years. You go out there and you get a Notre Dame lineman like Joe Alt, if he's available, if you're the Giants. Maybe you get Marvin Harrison Jr., who knows? Maybe you get lucky. That's another guy that they could potentially pick if he's available at 6 overall, coming out of Ohio State. A lot of good guys that we've been seeing out of Ohio State as well, just like Notre Dame linemen. Ohio State receivers have been panning out in the NFL. Garrett Wilson, right on the other side of right in the same stadium in New York, out of Ohio State. Chris Olave, out of Ohio State. Who else out of Ohio State? Jesus Christ. Jamar Chase, Ohio State. Another guy. No, not Jamar Chase. No. Jeez, he's LSU. Regardless, Ohio State receivers, not Jamar Chase. Who am I thinking of? Justin Jefferson. There we go. No, not Justin Jefferson. It is Jamar Chase. I don't know. All right. Well, anyways, Ohio State receivers. I'm having a brain fart there. 40 minutes in, no breaks. All right. Sue me. Marvin Harrison Jr., Ohio State receivers are beasts. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, 2 right off the top of my head right now. But Marvin Harrison Jr., 6'4". He has the size to go up against a lot of NFL defenders right now. And you bring Marvin Harrison in a room with Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt, 2 guys who in the second half of the season for the Giants actually proved that they could be good NFL receivers. And they are good NFL receivers, but none of them are true number ones. Marvin Harrison, he could easily be that number 1 guy for the Giants, and he would be a great weapon for Daniel Jones. If the Giants do trust Daniel Jones and they believe in him that bad and they believe in him that much, and they don't want to pick Jayden Daniels at number 6, and Joe Alt gets taken, you get Marvin Harrison Jr. then. Or you get another guy who played in the National Football Championship, Dane Brugler, whatever his name is. But he had actually a really good year in Washington. He was a big reason that they did go undefeated except that last game of the season. But how old is he? All right, well, it doesn't show me how old he is. But he's a potential guy that if he is sitting there at 6 and Marvin Harrison gets selected and Joe Alt gets selected and they don't want to select a quarterback with that 6 overall pick, then you can go out there and you can pick a guy who was in the college football championship in Brugler, who's at 6'4", 230. He's a strong runner. He's a beast. He's kind of like a lot of people are putting him as the number 2 prospect right behind Marvin Harrison. Some are putting him actually at the number 1. But he is a beast. He is a beast. So that's another guy that the Giants could pick if he is sitting there at number 6. But is Daniel Jones still the guy? We already basically know that he's not. Let's wrap it up with some Knicks talk, and then we'll wrap it up with some postseason reactions and predictions for the divisional round. But the Knicks, do they have a center in Isaiah Hartenstein? When Mitch went down with his injury, he's going to be out for the year now. We were like, who are we going to get a center? Who are we going to get a starting center? But Isaiah Hartenstein, he's a beast. We need a backup because he can't be playing 40 minutes every single night. But let's go over his stats the past few nights. 12 rebounds in his last game. Against Memphis, 20 rebounds. Against Dallas, 15 rebounds. Against Portland, 14 rebounds. Against Washington, 19 rebounds. Against Chicago, 20 rebounds. Against Minnesota, 9. Against Indianapolis, 9. he's a rebounding machine. Against Milwaukee, 13. Against Brooklyn, he had 10. Against LA Lakers, he had 17. Against the Clippers, he had 10. These are very good teams, and he's a rebounding machine. And he can also put the ball in the basket. I mean, he scored 12 points against the Memphis Grizzlies. Against the Philadelphia 76ers, he actually popped off for 17 points, 8 of 9 for the field. He can put the ball in the basket. He makes the right passes, and he's a rebounding machine right now. He's only averaging 24.9 minutes per game right now because he only has 14 games started this year. But 8.3 rebounds per game, 6.8 points per game. And let's go over his numbers in starts rates right now. His numbers in starts this season. Oh, wow. Stat moves don't even know him. He's averaged 11.9 rebounds, 8 points, and 2.9 assists in 14 starts this season. Hartenstein, he can be our starting center, especially if Julius Randle scoring 24.2 points per game and Jalen Brunson scores 25.8 points per game. We got 2 stars. Jalen Brunson, I think he is a superstar. I really do. I think that we do have a superstar point guard. We could use another facilitator in this offense, but we do have a very good point guard, shooting guard, whatever you want to call him. He's the point guard right now when he starts, but sometimes he does take a back seat and plays that shooting guard role. But 25.8 points per game, 6.4 assists, 43% behind the arc, 47% inside, 47% just from the field overall. Jalen Brunson, he's a superstar. He is. And then Julius Randle as well. I mean, love him or hate him, you got to acknowledge that he is probably the second best power forward, third best power forward actually this year. You got probably Giannis and Anthony Davis. But Julius Randle, he's top 3 power forward in all of NBA. 24.2 points per game, 9.2 rebounds, shooting 47% from the field. You got to give him his respect. He's also started 40 games this year. I believe he hasn't missed a single game. So, yeah, Julius Randle, he's that guy. He is that guy. Like I said, love him or hate him, you got to acknowledge he's a top 3 power forward. And the Knicks are in a good position. They're 6-2 since the OG Anunoby trade. Quick update on RJ Barrett, actually. He did score 24 points the other night, and he has been having a good little run for the Toronto Raptors. But I'm not sold that RJ Barrett on the Knicks would have gotten us further than what we will now. And Emmanuel Quickley, I will miss him. Like I said it last week's pod, I will miss him. In 8 games with the Toronto Raptors, he is averaging 18.9 points. He's shooting 47% from 3. Emmanuel Quickley is balling out for Toronto, and good for him. Good for him. I'm happy for him. And I'm also happy for RJ Barrett, who's scoring 19.9, shooting 44% from 3, shooting 56% from the field. They're having great years. They're having great runs with Toronto right now. But the Knicks are better off with OG Anunoby. They are. Defensively and offensively. Like Carmelo Anthony said on a recent podcast with I forgot who, but he basically I'll summarize what he said. He basically said that RJ Barrett needed to score 20 points. And now that the Knicks have OG, they don't have a guy that's always calling for the ball and taking as many bad shots and trying to get that 20 points. Everybody knows that it's Randle and Brunson. And OG knows that he's the third guy, yes, but he's not necessarily the third guy in offense. One time it could be OG. Another day it could be Dante DiVincenzo. Another guy could be Quentin Grimes, or it could be Miles McBride, who just scored 20 points, career high the other night. I don't know about Miles McBride right now, balling out. Finally, nice to see Miles McBride getting an opportunity, which we wouldn't have seen if Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett were still on the Knicks. So now that Miles McBride is getting an opportunity, we're actually seeing what he can do. Like I said, 20 points the other night in 36 minutes, started that game. And then he also started against Memphis, scored 19 points there, and he had 5 assists there as well. And he's shooting good, 7-10 in Memphis, 8-17 against Orlando. Miles McBride, who knows? Who knows? I'm not saying he could be that facilitator that the Knicks need for Brunson, but maybe. Nah, We still need a guy. McBride would be huge off the bench still. We need him off the bench. We need a 6-man, and maybe McBride could turn into that 6-man. You still need to get another facilitator in this offense, but the Knicks look good. I can't lie. The Knicks look real good right now, standing at, I believe, 7th in the East last time I checked. 7th in the East, 23-17. This team is going to be a top 5 seed by the end of the year. They will. They will. And we'll see if they do make any moves. I know Eddie believes that they need to make a move. You see Eddie Presti. Shout out my guy, Eddie Presti. Make sure you go check out all his potential trades and actually his sick uniforms also for the Mets. I will say that he had a very good and Knicks uniforms that he does make as well. But I do mainly like the Mets ones. But his Knicks trade proposals, one of them actually did come to fruition. The RJ Barrett for OG Anunoby one that he posted over the offseason. So shout out Eddie right there. And then also shout out CP for also, if I'm going to be shouting out these content creators real quick, you know I got to shout out my guy CP, always showing support, man. And then, also make sure you guys check out Morning Sports Network and my guy Amish and Shane Sons, all those guys. But NFL divisional round predictions we will get into in just a sec. NFL wild card round, my reaction. One, Jared Goff, he is that guy. He is that guy, and I believe it is an even trade. If the Lions do get to the Super Bowl or even the NFC Championship game, I think that trade will prove to be even for both sides. Right now, the Rams do have the upper hand because they got that Super Bowl title, but it's looking good for the Lions. They wouldn't be where they are unless they traded Matthew Stafford, so it's looking good for them. Eagles in Dallas, they suck. Happy to see that, even as a Jets fan. Always nice seeing Philly suck. And Dallas, I mean, yeah, it's always nice seeing Dallas lose. Jordan Love's legit. It's always nice that Sidon is good, but now that he's facing the San Francisco 49ers, he's going to get a hard reality check because the San Francisco 49ers, they might win the whole goddamn thing in the NFC and go to the Super Bowl. Baker Mayfield, he is a beast. He's a beast. I love seeing Baker win. I saw a tweet earlier today. I forgot from who, but it said that Baker is what what we wish Johnny Manziel could have been. And that's right. Baker Mayfield is that guy. Yes. Is he fun? Is he unpredictable? Yes, but he's also mature. And he's not that guy that's going to go out there and party. No, he is a first overall pick and a franchise quarterback now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's going to get locked up long-term now, getting that playoff win. And it's going to be interesting to see what he does in the divisional round because they beat a very good team in the Eagles. The Eagles choked, yes, but the Eagles are also a very good team. Bills versus Chiefs is going to be awesome again. The Bills really just beat up the Steelers. It's crazy how they got all that snow out. Bills Chiefs again, and that's going to get me into it actually right now. Bills Chiefs again. Oh, CJ Stroud also is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, maybe even a top 7, top 5. He balled out. Ravens Texans is going to be fun. But we'll get into the first fun matchup. Bills Chiefs at Bills. I got the Bills winning that one. Simple. Home. They're home. They're red hot. They're not losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are kind of broken a little bit. They kind of got an easy matchup in the wild card round. So I do see the Bills actually coming out on top using that home field advantage as an advantage because Josh Allen is playing out of his mind right now too. Let's go over to the other games. Houston Texans, Baltimore Ravens. CJ Stroud playing great, but Lamar Jackson, arguably the NFL MVP, definitely an NFL MVP candidate, and the Ravens probably the best team in football, so they are going to win, even though the Browns defense is legit and the Ravens defense is probably the best defense in the league, and Browns right up there with the best defense in the league too. Stroud beat up that defense. You might expect them to beat up another great defense in the Baltimore Ravens, but I don't see that happening. I think just the Ravens being that much better is going to have what it is going to be the effective whatever outcome. So Ravens winning that game. Packers, San Francisco 49ers. You already got my thoughts on that a little bit ago. Jordan Love going to hit a hard reality check. Great story, sitting behind Rodgers for a few years. Now balling out. Great to see him get that playoff win under his belt. He's probably going to be a top 10 quarterback going into next year and going forward. But the San Francisco 49ers have an MVP candidate in Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey. Deebo Samuel is a stud. You also got Brandon Ayuk. You got George Kittle, stud offensive line, stud defense. One of the best head coaches in football, if not the best head coach in football. 49ers are going to the NFC Championship game, which means they're beating the Green Bay Packers this Saturday. Sunday, you got the Bucks at the Detroit Lions. Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff. This is going to be a hard one because I love Baker and I love Goff, but I'm going with Baker Mayfield on this one. I'm riding him. Pause. Let's go. We're riding the hot hand in Baker Mayfield. Let's go. Kansas City Chiefs at Buffalo Bills. You already told me about that one. Bills taking that one. So that wraps it up for the divisional round. So, yeah, that's about it. That's all I got today on the pod. Basically, to wrap things up, sign Pete Alonso for an extension before he hits 50 home runs and we have to pay him an Aaron Judge type deal. Mets should also sign Jorge Soler. Yankees, go get Josh Hader and Blake Snell. What else? Knicks need to find a backup center. And go check out my latest articles on Fansided. That's about it. Thanks. Have a good one, guys. See you probably next week or maybe later this week. Who knows? James Nolan Podcast signing out.